Welcome to Leadership Matters, a podcast from the Bailey Group. I'm your host, Kaylee Thomsen, president of and partner at the Bailey Group, where we believe better leaders create healthier workplace environments, healthier humans, and a better world. On this show, we explore real stories, practical insights, and honest conversations to help you lead yourself and others better. Thanks for joining us. Let's dive in. Welcome to Leadership Matters. Today, we've got Mary Nutting with us, co-founder of Strategic Talent Partners. Mary, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. I was so excited, Kaylee.
So I want to start with, what is important for people to know about you?
You know, this is a really good question because someone just last week posted on LinkedIn and they were talking about your brand and your image and what you wanted to come across. And I saw that post and it made me think about this. So when I knew you were going to ask me this question, I actually had come up with three things. And so I think the first for me is that I want people to know me as someone who helps first, and I think I absolutely love to obviously coach people in their careers. Being a recruiter, it's just in my blood. My husband laughs at me because I cannot go anywhere without asking people what they do and what do you want to do.
I love that.
But I also I'm super passionate about just helping people figure out, especially if they're interested in getting into being a business owner, or just, where they're at in their journey. And yeah, it's just that kind of, how can I help you? The second thing is I've forever been passionate about leadership. And that's why I love, talking to you and the people at the Bailey Group, because you're just my people. But I love just the whole concept of leadership and knowing that, everybody, no matter what your role, whether it's even in a career or a stay-at-home mom or, it doesn't matter, but leadership is everywhere. And I just think that's so important. It's such a great topic. I'm forever reading books about leadership and learning myself. And then the third thing is I'm just so passionate about other business owners. Being a small business owner myself, I know how hard it is, how grueling it can be. It can be exhausting, and just making connections with other business owners and being able to talk shop and commiserate with each other is just so rewarding, and to kind of talk about challenges and then solutions. So
That's amazing. And what strikes me about what you shared, Mary, is there's this element of serving in each of those that really is consistent with my experience with you. So tell us about the formative experiences that you've had that have shaped you into a leader. You told us how that was really important to you. Leadership is really important to you. And I love how you touched on, and everyone is a leader in some way or another. And the potential impact of that is tremendous, no matter where you are.
yeah.
Talk to us about how you've really grown and developed as a leader.
Yeah. Thinking back on just my career and really that the key leadership, times in my life. The first was I was a really young people leader. So I worked for a Fortune 500 company in information technology, way different career. And I managed 30 web developers.
Wow.
And all but one, so 29 of them, were older than me.
Wow.
And I could not program. I didn't know how to program. And I had to learn really early on, how can I help them, best help serve them as their leader? And that's when I learned the importance of communicating the company's vision and goals and how that translated to the work that they do every day. But then I moved on, and after becoming an entrepreneur, of course, leading as a business owner is a whole completely different ballgame.
How so?
Well, it's the emotional side of running your business, while also leading people can be difficult because it's your baby. And I had to learn that not everybody's going to think about this company as their company. It's not their company. They're while it can be a very rewarding career, it's different for them. I'm the one that has the risk. And I had to really, it took me a while to figure that out. So that was pretty pivotal. And then I think one other one, so I'm back to the three things, but is my time working with NABO, Minnesota on the board. I was on the board for 7.5 years. I was president for 3.5 of those years. And I will tell you, leading volunteers that are all women business owners was the most challenging yet rewarding leadership experience of my life.
Wow. So for those unfamiliar with NABO, tell us what it means and how you came into contact with them originally.
Yeah. So NABO stands for National Association of Women Business Owners. And every state in the country, it is a U.S. Organization, has their own chapter. And so I was a member just to meet other women business owners, and then I started realizing the importance of having a network like that, and became more involved. And then Marnie Oakes Raleigh, who you probably know, talked me into coming onto the board, and it was a wonderful experience. And then that led to being the president. But it was really fun to help bring in programming that ultimately supports women business owners at all stages of their journey.
Wow. I've heard the name before. I don't know that I've met Marnie.
Yeah, she's a rock star. She's owner of Evolve Systems or Evolve Marketing.
Wow. So I heard you say that leading volunteer women was the most challenging and rewarding leadership experience that you've had.
Yeah.
Tell us more specifically what made that particularly so challenging.
Yeah. Well, I think, first of all, being in a room full of women business owners, you automatically are like, oh gosh, I gotta be on my game, right? Because everybody there has been successful at starting and running a company. But for a volunteer organization like this, it's a nonprofit. These women are using their time and talent, and energy. So it's, you want to be able to get, the best thinking and ideas out on the table. You've brought all this great talent in. But we're also all very opinionated and have our own ideas of how to lead other people. And so, it was challenging in that way, but also one of the biggest growth opportunities because I learned from them. We learned from each other. We learned not to be maybe so, determined in our own ideas and thoughts, and really to challenge each other. And that always gets the best thinking out on the table. But it's not for the faint of heart.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. That's incredible. So bring us back to that first experience do you say in your 20s?
When you were in 30s, late 20s, 30, early 30s.
When you're leading this group of 30 developers.
Yes.
What did that feel like when you first got into that role?
Honestly, I felt like I was living the imposter syndrome almost every day. And it was hard. And I knew that I had leadership skills, and I had gone through a lot of leadership development, throughout the course of my career. But I always felt like, I don't know, I wasn't good at their craft. And I think a lot of leaders find themselves there. You might have started as an individual contributor and really being a subject matter expert. And then throughout the years, you get farther away from that. So even if it's something that you did, you're not always still the expert. And so now it's about leading other people who have that subject matter expertise and really just being there to provide the platform, the foundation for them to thrive and for them to work together. So it was hard. And then I think when I finally realized, through just feedback from them, you get some affirmations, people staying and growing in their career. And some of them, to be honest, their couple are still there or who have retired from that job. Um, you start to realize, okay, I guess I did make a difference, but sometimes it takes going through it and then looking back to be able to recognize that.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't actually get the validation to know if it
Yes.
did or not.
Yes.
And yet somebody could be thinking about you and remembering one comment you made or one thing that you did
Yes.
that had a transformative impact on the trajectory of their whole life.
Right. Exactly.
So tell me more about what did you learn about yourself from that experience, Mary?
Well, I learned that I wasn't necessarily passionate about information technology. I kind of fell into this industry, and after 19 years and climbing up the ladder, I realized it wasn't why I was still there. I was there because I kept growing in my leadership capacity. And ultimately, it came down to I love to hire and develop people
Mm,
towards, their passions and interests and career goals. And that was the catalyst for me making a complete career change and going to work for a talent management company.
wow. And how did you get that clarity of making maybe clarity and confidence? Because that's
Yeah.
a big transition to make when you feel like you've, as you said, climbed the corporate ladder
Yeah.
and you see a very clear linear path ahead of you to say, actually, I might go down a few rungs on the ladder and try something totally different.
Yeah. I was really fortunate because the owner of this company, this boutique talent management firm was a family member.
Mm.
And so, and he comes from obviously the talent strategy side of, the industry. And over, conversations around the fire in the backyard, I would just tell him about my passion and what am I going to do? And he gave me the opportunity to come in and help create an executive search practice
Wow.
underneath this company. And did not know anything about executive search, but I had hired a lot of people.
Sure.
And so I was very, passionate and very like curious about how, the other side of recruiting. And that was the start of my recruiting career. So launched an executive search firm and did that for 4 years and found that I just really loved it.
Wow. So how did you bridge that gap? When we had Lee on the podcast, Lee Bailey,
Yep.
he talked about how he had only done career coaching and then he set his sights on CEO advising. And I always find it fascinating to hear how do you go from making a lot of hires
Yeah.
to now building out this executive search function?
Yeah. Well, I didn't do it alone, absolutely, for sure. I had great mentors within the company that helped. Actually, Mike Braun, who was on your podcast
Last week.
last week, was one of my mentors. Early, we worked together at that company, believe it or not. That was so many years ago. And, I just really learned from all of these leaders who had been in different companies, who had started their own businesses and learn how to do it. But I think leading people, has just always been something that I love to do. So maybe it came a little easier for me. And then translating that into search,
Yes.
and finding that talent, it was kind of the magic happened, came together.
That is so neat. It's incredible when those interests and passions and skills align with very real marketplace needs.
Yes, absolutely.
So what would be something that most folks would be surprised to hear about the world of executive search? Give us a peek behind the
Oh.
curtain.
You know, um, Well, first of all, it is hard. It is really hard for all of the recruiters out there in the world. Oh my gosh, it is a very tough business because it takes a lot of determination and stamina to reach out to hundreds and hundreds of people and get the door shut in your face, multiple times. But then to also find that perfect fit, for the role in which you're recruiting for. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of finessing. And I think the other side is understanding that someone might have the perfect background and skill set and even the culture fit, but they still have to be the right person for that role
Mm.
at that time.
Mm.
And there's so many variables that go into it. It's complex. It really is. I'm not sure that I would have started a business in recruiting
Wow.
because it's been that hard,
Yes.
but I'm glad that I did it, and it is very rewarding at the end of the day.
That is incredible. That statement around if I would have known
Yeah.
how challenging it really is, that
Yeah.
might have stopped me.
Yeah.
And um I will just say it's very inspiring hearing that story
Yeah.
and having that's the other thing that stuck out to me about the world of search is you talked about how it's so much work
Yeah.
and it requires a lot of stamina
Hmm.
and it's pretty risky.
Yeah.
You
It
don't
is.
know for sure if it will pay off or not, or if the client will choose to extend an offer or not, or
Yeah.
choose to find their way through the negotiation in a successful fashion.
Yeah.
The client and the candidate, if
Exactly.
they can, because there's a lot outside of your control. There's
There's a
things you
lot.
can finesse.
Yeah. And I think, more often than not, people today are really doing, they're thinking about their options.
Mm,
But, really the biggest risk is making sure that it's the right fit. And really for that person that you're placing in that organization, you feel responsible
yeah.
almost for their career, especially taking somebody out of a great company and
Mm,
role
mm,
for an even better opportunity and wanting to make sure that that person feels satisfied and that they, made the right decision. That's why our follow up, I mean, we follow up to a year with
mm,
those people because it is so very important for us to make sure that everything is going the way that they had hoped. And if not, because nothing is perfect, how do we help them navigate, maybe conversations with that owner or that hiring manager to make sure that they get alignment.
mm.
So,
I do want to spend some time
yeah,
on your entrepreneurial spirit
yeah,
and the decision to strike out on your own with a partner in 2010 when you boldly started Core Talent.
yeah,
So bring us back to that time, Mary. What
yeah.
was that like for you? And what were the events that led up to um,
Yeah.
co-founding Core Talent?
Talent. Well, actually, when I worked for this boutique talent management company, I was absolutely loving my job. I mean,
Mm.
I had so much fun. I couldn't wait to get up every morning and do what I was
Oh.
doing. However, my daughter at the time was going through middle school and was having a lot of just emotional issues,
Mm.
stress, and anxiety. And I would come back to my office and get the phone call, and I just felt like that tug that I needed to be home. I needed to
Mhm.
be home. I needed to be flexible. And so I actually went out on my own and did recruiting on my own for almost 4 years.
Wow.
It was something where I
You.
felt like I could use that craft, that skill that I learned, create my own little business, do what I love to do, but also be there, for them. And so I did that. My first week, I mean, I think I cried every day because I was so used to being with people,
Sure.
and it was hard to be on my own.
Mm.
So then, 4 years later, when I had the opportunity to co-found Core Talent, it was because I really wanted to do this with another person.
Yes.
Started Core Talent, merged our two pretty small businesses together. Um, and then after about 4 years, we had great success really early. But we were kind of at different places in our lives and our careers. And after 4 years, we decided that I would buy her out, which
Okay.
I did. And, it was a great thing. It wasn't so great at the time, which we could get into if you want to, but that's how Core Talent started. And it would have been 15 years old last year if I had not merged with Keystone Executive
Wow.
Search.
I absolutely do want to get into that. But before we go there, when you look back on those 4 years before you co-founded Core Talent and
Hmm.
think back to, moving from the dream, right?
Yeah.
A role you love, a job you love, being around other people, to those 4 years of a lot more flexibility, but also a real lack of, I don't know if it would be community or corporation contributing to a larger team or
Yeah.
organization. How would you characterize that time in
Yeah.
your life?
I think I didn't realize that I was as entrepreneurial as I was. I never thought that I would have my own business.
Wow.
Never. And but I always had like ideas. And I always thought, well, what if we did this? Or what about that? I mean, we could create something like that. And honestly, the owner, who again was a family member, traveled a lot. And because we had a fairly large, successful business, and I would be waiting in his office when I knew he was coming back in. And I was waiting for him to tell him about my ideas. I think I drove him absolutely crazy. And so one day, when I told him that I thought I needed to be out on my own, he said, Mary, you need to have your own business,
Mm.
because he saw that in me before I even saw it. But I think it was the visionary part of me. And I wanted to like be able to act on my ideas and I mean, and take those risks, quite frankly, because you never know if they're going to pan out or not. But I think I've always been a risk taker, and I didn't know that early in my career.
Wow.
So, yeah.
It really shows the impact of people reflecting back what they see in you
Yeah.
to help you see yourself through other people's
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah, for sure.
So you co-found this organization, Core Talent, and so many of the times we talk about the successes in business,
Yeah.
right? And we talk about how um, wonderful it was, and we always had this vision, and we actualized it, and how amazing. Um, Talk to me about the decision to merge your two small businesses together,
Mhm.
and what were you feeling in that moment? And were there signs that ultimately 4 years later, it would have turned out the way that it did?
Yeah. I think initially, and I think this is what happens almost always with business owners or visionaries, right? You get super excited about all the possibilities. We were very different,
Mm.
and I think those differences were like very attractive to each other.
How so? Tell us, give us more.
That my business partner was very good at business development,
Mm.
and quite honestly, she is a great recruiter. And for me, I think maybe it was more about creating a company with other people, leading those people,
Mm.
leading them towards our vision, and more the infrastructure part of the business. And so I think we learned a lot from each other during those 4 years and again had great success very early. Um, but over time, I think our differences, started becoming more uh, real as it related to our growth and where we were going to go from that point forward. And
Mhm.
again, we were at different places in our lives and careers. And so decided, let's make a change. I bought her out. And again, I think it was very exciting. But I also think when you start to realize, are we the right mix, to grow this company? Do we have all the right people? Is this the right thing to be doing? Those are scary, scary, scary questions, right? And I took a leap of faith because I wanted to go a little bit different direction. I've always been, even though search was always something really important to me, I always felt this tug to help entrepreneurial companies
Mm.
um, onboard these leaders and develop these leaders and position their company for continued success with these leaders and growth. And so I wanted to do things that were in addition to search.
Mm.
And so that's what I decided to do. And I doubled down on that.
Wow. And how practically did you do that, Mary? So you've now bought your partner out.
Yeah.
You've got a vision. What are the next steps?
Well, this is the not so fun part of being a business owner. Financially, I was broke, because I paid for half of the business.
Yep.
Ultimately, my vision wasn't necessarily a fit with everybody in the organization, or just, for whatever reason, they decided to go a different direction, or I did.
Mhm.
So we had a lot of turnover. So there was this point where I was like, what did I do?
Mm.
I just bought this business and now we're half the size, and I basically have to grow this from the, bottom up. But I don't know, Kaylee, I don't know what, I guess determination, like I wanted to do this. I wanted to create something a little different, and did it. And then it was about hiring that one next best person at
Mm.
a time.
Mm.
And I developed a core group of a team, and those people are still with us today.
Wow.
So it took a while, right? But it was surrounding myself with the right people, and that we had a shared vision, and we would build this company together.
So aside from people who absolutely changed the trajectory of core talent, what other decisions that you made changed things around for you?
Yeah. I think really understanding, you talk about core values in an organization, but it really, as a business owner, it has to start with your core values. So really understanding what does that mean, and getting really clear around that, and making sure not only the people that you bring in fit that, but that you're working with the right clients where you share those core values, and you're creating services built on those core
Mm.
values and principles. So I think there was a lot of soul searching
Mhm.
and uncovering what those things were,
Mhm.
so that I was, making the right decisions going forward. That was a big part of it. NABA was a big part of it because I surrounded myself with other women business owners, who were in various stages of their careers. And so leaning on other people. There's a lot of decisions, finding the right banker, finding the right, advisors.
Yes.
It was a lot of work.
Yes. And look where you're at now.
Another company.
So talk to us about that transition to strategic talent partners.
Yeah, well, I talked about, I think the shift with core talent for me was not just doing search, but also helping these privately held companies who often didn't have HR at the strategic table, and helping them with other leadership development programs.
Mm.
I was always passionate about that. And my now business partner, Mike Frommelt, who owned Keystone Executive Search, had always been passionate about that as well.
Mm.
We both only worked with privately held organizations, including ESOPs,
Mhm.
employee stock ownership owned. But we always knew that we wanted to be more than not that search is transactional, but we wanted to be more than just a search partner.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to be an extension of, that leadership team and a partner to the owner who is putting their blood, sweat, and tears into this business, wants to grow, and we want to help them get there through their people. And so we both wanted to grow our organizations, but growing companies, especially today, it's not easy. And we ultimately felt like we would be better together. We would be stronger, bringing our talent together. We would be in a position to grow better together.
Yeah. How did you and Mike first meet?
Well, back when I first started that executive search practice,
Yes.
I asked around and asked who is the best executive recruiter in Minnesota. And hands down, everybody told me Mike Frommelt
Wow.
because he's been doing this a long time.
And what year was this?
This would have been 2000, oh my gosh, 2002 maybe?
Wow.
And I called Mike Frommelt my very first day at this organization. And we got together and we have been friends ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an incredible story.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about the two of you that makes your partnership so successful?
Well, it's funny because at that same time, I remember going to Barnes & Noble and I picked up the Kennedy's Pocketbook Guide to Executive Search. And you're going to laugh at this, Kaylee. It described a guy in a tweed suit on the golf course. Like it was all about schmoozing and I'm like, what? This can't be right. I just kept finding all this cheesy stuff. And so when I talked to Mike and learned his style and his authenticity in partnering with his clients and how he took that approach to finding people, I was so interested, I was so curious, and I wanted to learn more about his process. So I think his authenticity, he was such a great guy, someone that I immediately just felt like I could build that trust with. And so he became a mentor and I learned from him. And so we started working together, referring business back and forth, mostly him to me. But, we did that for a number of years. And then I just realized that our core values and plus we're the same age and we just thought the same. And
Wow.
we had talked about merging our businesses for a long time, just never
Really?
pulled the trigger. Yeah. And
How long was a long time then? How long was this
I
talk?
would say probably for about 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Maybe even longer.
So what were the conditions that finally pushed you into trigger pulling?
Yeah. I think the thing that scared us the most is that 8 years ago, we both were so proud of not just the companies that we had built, but the people that we had within the organizations. And the camaraderie and just the trust and we were so afraid to change that dynamic. And but we realized that our core values in both organizations were so similar because Mike and my core values were so similar that when we started talking through, potential areas that, could be not contentious, but just maybe a harder to bridge, we just kept finding that there were so many similarities. But we did seek advice from professionals. Mike Payton, who was, past visionary of EOS Worldwide, who's now he's an OG of, the implementer world.
The OG, I would say.
He is the OG.
Nobody more OG than Mike Payton.
So Mike and I both know Peyton, and, I think we had gone to him separately for some advice. He kept telling us the same thing, and finally we got together with him, and he just said, look, if as long as you two are on this exact same page and that you think that your company's the culture, that you can blend the culture of your businesses. And oh, by the way, he told us that we had to have one visionary, and we fought him. We fought him over that.
Could do it differently.
We did actually.
Exception.
We are co-visionaries, but we
That's great.
also stay in our lanes.
Yeah.
And Peyton said you have to do that. And then I think having our president, Tony Bednar, as our integrator, it just, that really was, I think, the reason why we felt so confident that we could merge our companies together.
Wow.
But it still wasn't easy.
Yeah.
So
So talk to us about, you've made the decision now. You're going to move forward with a merge.
yeah.
What do you do next?
Yeah, well, so it's been a year and a half actually. We spent the first year really getting to know each other first as a new leadership team.
Yep.
And even Mike and I, even though we knew each other really well, we hadn't worked together on a day in and day day in and day out basis. So that was fun.
A learning experience.
We're actually we're so alike that it's kind of scary, but I think just really getting to know each other, get our teams getting to know each other. We spend a lot of time really talking about, who we are, but more importantly, who we want to be. And, we spent a lot of time with our website and, all of the things, right? But it really hasn't been until like probably the last 3 months. So it took over a year to align on the fact that we're no longer two search firms that came together as one. We are a talent strategy firm that happens to specialize in executive search and leadership solutions, and which includes development and succession planning. And it's really a whole different approach in how we work with our clients. And so that took us a long time to get there. Even though Mike and I had the vision,
Yeah.
even being able to articulate it and transfer it to our service offerings, it was hard work. And then to cascade that down to our teams. So
What do you think served you most during that process, Mary, as you're trying to merge these two organizations together and, by the way, continue to run the business?
yeah. I mean, hands down, I give so much credit to our leadership team, and it's the way our leaders showed up, every one of them. You have to be confident and not be defensive so that we can get things out on the table and say, gosh, even though you did things one way and it was super successful, might not be the same exact way that we're going to do things going forward. And, and the same on the other side. It also takes being humble, to be able to admit that not any one of us has all the right ideas, and that we really needed to get our best thinking out on the table. I mean, I'm so proud of this leadership team, and that's what I want for every company, is to have that leadership team where you can have, arguments and fights and and just big powwows around what you want to be and who you want to be and what's working and what's not working. But at the end of the day, align, and then march forward together. And I mean, that's truly what has made our company successful and what will continue to make us successful going forward.
It's so powerful when you can, to your point, get everything out on the table, have the conversations, and then move forward in an aligned fashion.
Yes.
How have you intentionally created that environment? That doesn't happen by accident.
No, it doesn't. Well, we run on EOS, which love EOS. So that rigor of having an accountability structure and having your level 10 meetings and IDSing. I mean, we have one of the best, if not the best, integrator on the planet, Tony Bednar, which we model a lot of our integrator, assessments and evaluation work off of because he's so good. But, I think really having that structure and that foundation and holding each other accountable is I mean, it's just so critical. I mean, if we didn't have that, we would have gotten there, but it would have taken us even longer,
Mm.
you know? So I really give that credit to our leadership team. But then, I think also our people, and their willingness to they don't always know. We think we've been communicating that vision because we've been living it every single day, and we realize, it's that whole thing where you're at the racetrack, and you're off to the races, and you're like miles down the road, and you look back and you realize, oh my God, I have forgotten about them. And so intentional communication. I can't say that we've been superb at it because it's something that I think we always have to be cognizant of and do a better job. But we are getting better,
Mm.
and we just have to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm. So I want to double click on Tony for a minute.
Yes.
You said best integrator in the world.
Yes. Well, he's
Talk to
got
us
some
about-
flaws, but no, just kidding.
Well, of course he does,
Yeah.
which is, very human.
Yeah.
What are those core competencies that make for the most successful, effective integrators from your experience?
Well, there's kind of two answers to this question. There is the more universal, so being objective, being someone who can make decisions based on data and facts, being a good, program manager where you are looking across the organization. And that really is what integrating is all about, right? It's, holding people accountable, making sure we have good, solid scorecards and metrics, and that we're evaluating and managing performance. But it's all those interpersonal, behaviors too. It's being, a really good people leader and someone who can communicate and who can be that bridge between sometimes the crazy visionaries who are all over the place and, the people that are executing on the work, and kind of being that sounding board, I think is, but I think the other thing that is more important is the fit with the visionaries. And that's where there is not a one size fits all. And so, I didn't know, because Tony was Mike's integrator. I did not know how well he would fit with me.
Sure.
Because even though Mike and I have a lot of similarities, we're also very different. We have different strengths. We got lucky, with this merger, because Tony fits with the two of us like perfectly.
Amazing.
Yeah. But that is really where that magic happens, And as an example, not every integrator has to have, a CFO background. In our case, Mike and I, we don't have really, really, really strong finance backgrounds. So for us, having, Tony was a CFO, having that as a skill set was very important. As another, example, we are so visionary, Mike and I, and luckily we live in different parts of the visionary world, because Mike likes to create and I like to take that creation and run with it. But Tony is able to pull us back.
Yep.
And not so much to squelch our excitement and our passion. But enough to get us to think through things.
Yes.
And so, and again, it's we do so, being a company that appreciates assessments, we use assessments in our work, as do you, we spend a lot of time on this.
Yes.
And just making sure we're communicating with each other the right way, and that we're understanding, when you said that, what does that mean? And following up, and maybe too much, but it works.
I don't know that there is a thing as too much.
Yeah.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
So how did you first get introduced to the world of EOS?
Oh, gosh. It was back. Mike Frommel was one of the early adopters because, he was quoted in Rocket Fuel.
I did not know that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So
I must have skipped that part of it. Wow. So maybe we should back up for a minute.
Yeah.
Define EOS for us.
Yes.
And rocket fuel and traction and all these terms that we're talking about here.
Yeah. So the EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And I know a lot of people refer to it as traction. It's not. Traction is what you get if you run this system, right? And it's and the first book, or maybe the second book, was called Traction.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the explanation of this business management methodology.
It's a great way to describe it.
And it's so great. For me personally, I did come from big company experience. So I did learn strategic planning, and I learned a lot of those same business principles in a big corporation. But many entrepreneurs, especially founders, did not come from that background and didn't necessarily have a system or a business management system that they were familiar with. And for that reason, EOS was a brilliant idea. It was kind of taking all of those concepts and creating a system that is simple to understand. And even for me, even though I came from that background, now being in a smaller entrepreneurial company, EOS has allowed me to help bring others along because, it's different than what you're dealing with in corporate, and so the tools and the process have just made it easier to get alignment and cascade that vision down through the organization and empower people and hold people accountable, but also give accountability, to others. And so Mike was one of the very, very early adopters. Peyton was his implementer.
Okay, I didn't realize.
Yes.
So Peyton implemented EOS
For Mike's company at Keystone. Yep. And then Mike became very knowledgeable and really created some early tools. One is the integrator continuum. He became an early expert at hiring these integrators, particularly at the highest level,
Incredible.
the president level. But we also started, utilizing EOS back in 2010. When we first started Core Talent. And so Mike and I both had expertise in that industry and that business segment, and always had like 50% of our clientele, was using some form of EOS. So we were early adopters. We believe in the concept. They've worked for us, continue to work for us, and we still have, a good portion of our business, our clients run on EOS.
I'm also an EOS advocate. I'm curious from your perspective, Mary, and I've said before, it's a operating system that helps people get out of the weeds and think bigger picture and really align the organization in powerful ways. What do you think the magic is behind having something like that, whether it's EOS or something else?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it is creating clarity for the organization. I mean, that, and if there was one sentence that would, kind of express my feeling about EOS, it would be that.
And why is that important?
Oh, I mean, it really is everything because, you can only grow your business if your leadership team is all aligned on that growth plan and how to get there. And you can only grow if you have the people to execute on that plan, that is part of your growth strategy. Otherwise, it breaks down. You might limp along and you might get there, but it's going to be really painful because you're going to make more mistakes. You're going to make the wrong hiring decisions. You may not have the right people in the right roles, or have the people that have the skill set in the background that you need, 5 years out. So it just, I mean, it's like a non-negotiable for companies, especially that are scaling and growing. And so I think whatever business management, methodology you have to have something that keeps you, keeps you aligned and communicate that downwards.
Yes. It's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine, especially for you in the world of search, a necessary ingredient to give you direction in terms of what companies truly need.
Yeah. That's really why we decided we are not just a search firm. We are a talent strategy firm
Ah,
because of US, when we work with a client, even just to fill one role, we start with like, okay, where are you at today? What does your leadership team look like? What are your challenges?
mm,
Where's the strengths? Where's the opportunities? What are you going to look like in 3 to 5 years? How are you going to get there? Like we ask all those questions, and a lot of times we don't get the answers.
mm,
And that can be really difficult to make sure that you're hiring the right leader to support that growth.
mm.
And I think that's the number one mistake that companies make is they're trying to either backfill a role that the owner or the CEO is filling, or they're trying to fill a role as it sits today
Mm.
and not looking at even 3 years out because it could be a completely different profile.
So you're a talent partner at the highest levels. How would you advise organizations to manage that need? How do you do that more proactively and less reactively, hiring for the backfill position, as you point out, or the short-term position?
Yeah. Well, surprise, surprise, we have something called a strategic talent roadmap. But
Amazing.
really, it's just a plan, right? So everybody has a business plan. Very, very few companies have a people plan.
Mm,
And we call it a strategic talent roadmap that basically really illustrates who you've got in your organization today, 5 years out or whatever your strategic plan is measuring. What is it going to need to look like at that point in time? And then how do you get from point A to point B? What does it need to look like in the interim? And honestly, if you can map that out, we've done it ourselves. It helps you make those decisions
mm,
along the way.
mm,
And you're constantly going back to that plan to say, am I just filling the role because it's a need right now? Or should I be looking at this as an opportunity to maybe fill a couple different areas
mm,
with a different type of person?
mhm.
And it's just constantly thinking about that, going back to that plan. The plan's going to change, just like your business plan, but at least you've got a start and you've got something to work with, and you just keep refining it every year.
I love the focus on the big picture.
Yeah.
That is so powerful. And again, it harkens back to our experience with implementing EOS of you're getting out of the firefighting
Yes.
and the weeds of the business to be able to elevate and look more forward thinking and
Exactly.
make more forward thinking decisions.
Right. Exactly.
So you've had a very fruitful career. And we've talked before about how it can be easy to look at somebody like a Mary Nutting and think, wow, she
Oh,
is so accomplished and so skilled and so experienced, which you are, all of
oh,
those things.
I thank you, but man, oh man, that's a big compliment. So
And I'm sure it's been hard earned. So take us back to a moment in your career where you made a mistake and it felt all consuming.
oh my gosh, there's so many, Kaylee. I mean, I honestly, and that's the thing about having humility to and I tell my team all the time, I'm probably the most self-deprecating person in our company. But I think it's important because I think, that's how you learn, right? And how you grow. I have made so many mistakes, early on, getting, bent out of shape when your first employee leaves you. I was on a panel once and I talked about that dagger you feel in your heart. And like you get defensive, and it's like, I had to learn that this isn't about me, and this is about that person and finding the best fit for them that matches their current interests and passions. And now I kind of I take the opposite approach. I'm like, how can I help you? And like, is even if this isn't, your home 5 years out, how can we help support your areas of interest and your strengths and your passions. It's thinking that our process was like, the only process that works, and maybe learning from a client that
Mm.
challenges something that says, have you thought about this? And it's like, yeah, it's a really good point. And like, just it's everything. There's so many, I also think just it's that fine line of like building your company, being staying focused, but also being able to like take risks, make mistakes, pivot when you need to, and know that that's okay.
So what gave you the permission to do that? I mean, was it your
Oh.
childhood, your formative
It
experiences?
certainly wasn't my childhood. But I will say my father was a risk taker. My dad was like he had so many different careers. He was a business owner. He was a policeman. He owned a campground, a Montgomery Ward store. I mean, you name it, my dad has done it. And I think one of the things I did learn from him was that it's okay to take risks, and failure is it's not an option. Meaning you can always pick yourself back up. My dad, I saw him lose a lot and then
Mm.
rebuild.
Wow.
And I think that just gave me that kind of hope to say, to know that I'll be okay no matter what. I think that's a big part of it.
What a gift
Yeah.
to have that.
It's not easy all the time though. And I've got my husband is my biggest cheerleader and champion, and that guy talks me off the ledge more times than you can imagine. But having those people in your life that support you and that, kind of cheer you on and like pick you up
Mm.
when you are just so down, and say it's going to be okay. I mean, those things are so important.
It's everything.
Yeah, it's everything. And my friends who are business owners, I mean, it's everything.
Those relationships.
Yeah.
Wow. If you were to go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, what did she need to hear, Mary?
Oh gosh, it's something I tell my daughters who are now 31 and almost 30 in the working world. It is, when you're dealing with a really painful situation, whether it's a client issue or an employee issue or a boss issue or, whatever it is, a financial issue, it can feel like, the walls are just crumbling and everything is like the world is ending, and it can feel so overwhelming. But you will get through it.
Mm.
And I've had to learn that sometimes those biggest challenges are such a gift and opportunity to learn and grow from them. And you can't see that in the moment, and it's taken me a long time. I'm going to be 60 this year.
Mm.
And I still have those moments. And I know better because I've gotten through them and came out okay on the other
Yeah.
side. But it's still hard. And so I think, I would definitely tell my young self that it's going to be okay.
Yeah. And how receptive do you think she would have been to that feedback?
Oh, probably like my girls are, partially like, yeah, okay, mom, I get it. I know. But part of it, you never really get until you go through it. And we all deal with challenges, whether you're a business owner or a people leader, we all have challenges and leadership challenges, that we're dealing with every day. And so it's just a part of life.
Yeah. And I really resonate with that concept of you can hear something or logically or theoretically understand it, but until you're in it
Yeah.
and have lived through it,
Yeah.
it can be really hard.
Well, and I think that's why I go back to why I love to help other people, because I've had people in my life that have picked me up and helped me keep going. And I want to be that same catalyst for other people, no matter where they are in their career. I wish that I had more time to do it full time right now. I will get there. Or at least heal partially, because I'm going to be a grandma soon,
Well,
too.
congratulations. That's exciting. Wow. So what did that look like, Mary, when people were picking you up in those moments? What was most meaningful to you in those moments?
I think just, first of all, like, I think for them to show humility and to give examples of how they have been down and they have failed and they have taken big risks that haven't worked out and they've gotten through it. And then to also like acknowledge that it's okay to feel how you're feeling and like this is normal,
Yeah.
and then also to like give you that confidence that maybe you're not lacking, but you just need to hear
Yeah.
other people say they believe in you.
Yeah.
I think it's all of those things. And I think us as leaders, like that is our most important job. I mean, it's the most important job
Yeah.
of being a leader.
Yeah.
Most people are humble. Most people um have gifts and like strengths that they don't really even understand. Like they know, but they don't really know, because I don't know that they've always been told, or maybe they haven't been recognized for it. So I think, seeking out feedback and input from other people, pushing yourself maybe out of your comfort zone to work on a project to test out some skills and some ideas. I think those things are all really important. Ask, because I think there's so much power in people knowing where they have skills and strengths that could be leveraged.
Yeah. Mary, final question for you.
Okay.
What's something we didn't talk about that's on your heart right now to talk about?
It's this whole new work world. It is, some people talk about the different generations. Some people talk about what's going on in the world and that we're dealing with things that we never dealt with before. Some people talk about the changing landscape of corporations and small business. Some people talk about, the economy and what we're dealing with. Like there's all these variables. And I know we've always had them, but I think it's not that different than it used to be, and it's like, how do we find common ground? How do we continue to give working parents flexibility, while still having them engaged? It doesn't have to be an either or.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is where so many companies and people are kind of like forcing people to choose. And I I really think you can have it all. You really can,
I love that.
and I think it's just finding that common ground. And it's not about, from a work perspective, it is not about butts in the seat or the time people are spending. It's about the output.
Yeah.
It's the output at the end of the day. And we can do great things together if we all share the same vision and strategy on how to get there and share in the rewards that come with that. So I don't know. It was kind of a philosophical, maybe idea but I don't know. I just sometimes think we overcomplicate some of the things we're experiencing.
I
And I
actually,
get it. It is complicated.
I actually think that's really well said, Mary. I am just struck by this thought process of there's so much nuance out there. And the older I've gotten, the more I've realized things really aren't so black and white in terms of it's got to be this way or this way.
Right.
So how do we think bigger?
Yeah,
How do we get more creative
exactly.
and find win-win solutions?
Exactly.
Because when everyone wins,
Mm-hmm.
everyone wins.
Yep. All ships rise, right?
Yeah.
That saying. And I think you're so right. It's finding the balance and yeah. And there can be two truths,
Yes.
right? At
So
the same
powerful.
time. Yeah.
So powerful. Thank you.
Thank you. This was fun. I think we could talk all day for sure. I love your questions.
Thank you. I just appreciate you sharing your perspective and your heart with us today.
Thank you.
Genuinely.
I really appreciate you and everyone at the Bailey Group.
Thank you. Means a lot.
Thank you.
Especially coming from you.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Leadership Matters. If today's episode resonated with you, would you do me a favor and share it with someone you care about? To learn more about the work the Bailey Group is doing in the world, check us out at thebaileygroup.com or follow us over on LinkedIn. We love sharing useful articles, helpful resources, and valuable tools to help you expand your leadership capacity. Like and subscribe, and join us next time for more honest conversations.